One of the most overlooked sins that I think is committed on a fairly regular basis is workplace gossip. How Catholics deal with mean people. This is a topic that comes up quite a bit because even in the age of social media and our smartphones, where we can avoid a lot of direct person-to-person contact, we still have to deal with human persons on some level. And by the way, this could be at work, this could be at school, this could be in your family. And we also have to parse out here, what kind of meanness are we talking about? Are we talking about people who are generally abrasive and disagreeable? Or are we talking about someone who is in this very moment being openly belligerent and aggressive towards you? Because that's, again, a different kind of meanness, if you like. And of course, the easy answer to that is the word love. Love or charity, caritas, is the form of all the virtues. And this should really distinguish how Catholics deal with mean people. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to feel loving towards another person, right? Especially if they're being outrightly aggressive at you or mean at you. But you have to treat them with respect and civility. And sometimes the first move is to just diffuse a very mean situation. This happened to me recently where someone was very, very belligerent towards me outright, relatively unprovoked. And I thought that their belligerence was far disproportionate to the crime that I had apparently committed, which was really just a slight. It placed the person in no danger. It wasn't as if there was any real conflict that I tried to create, but they were outright mean and belligerent. And I began to realize right away, their anger wasn't even really about me. I think they were angry about something else, and I just happened to be the lightning rod. So move number one, usually in the way of charity, is to try to do your best to diffuse the situation, which many times may just simply mean saying, I don't think this is a good time for us to have this interaction because we're not at our best. So I'm going to step away and excuse myself. And perhaps when we decide that we want to have a calmer conversation, let me know and we can get together and discuss this. But you see, a lot of times our natural human instinct, and this is where the virtue of not only prudence, but also the virtue of justice, which is giving others what they are due, is really needed in order to arrive at that caritas, that love. Sometimes our natural reaction is just to want to react to anger with more anger. Now, I have to be clear here. There are moments when we need to repel belligerent behavior because there's a safety concern involved. Here, I'm assuming here that there's not going to be any violence involved. This is just simply an exchange of words. So sometimes what you have to do is just diffuse the situation. It can be either excusing oneself or simply just walking away. Simply walking away. And then waiting for the moment where the situation can be addressed in a calm manner. Now, this becomes very complicated when you're dealing with an individual who doesn't really understand what a calm demeanor means, and immediately they are given to anger. So again, sometimes you have to diffuse that situation multiple times until you can both come to a level playing field where you can have a calm, constructive conversation. It's not to say that difficult things might not be said, but it's just to say that it can't just be simply all based on emotions. This is one of the most difficult aspects of living in the digital age. For instance, you notice when you watch YouTube videos, comments will sometimes appear in the comment section of the video that are just bomb-throwing, flame-throwing, absolute anger and vitriol. That is not charity. That is not Christian. That is certainly not Catholic. Before we continue, I'd like to invite you to collaborate with us in our work of priestly formation here at St. Patrick's Seminary by making a donation using the link below. Thanks and God bless. If you're really going to have a constructive, life-giving, building up the kingdom kind of conversation, you need to start from the first posture is charity. Here, again, not necessarily feeling love, but at least offering civility, respect, And we see this in the public discourse now. There's no public discourse when it comes to handling our wider political problems in our country or in society in general, because people can leave comments or they can say things and hide behind an avatar or some tagline name and not have to own their words. For those of us who are Gen X or older, we recall a time where if we had a debate, we had to watch what we said and the manner we said it, because it could lead to a fist fight, and you didn't want that happening. It would come to blows, and we try to avoid that. But you see, in the digital age, it's so easy for us to just let go of our emotions without any control, and then we create even more vitriol. So the Catholic has to be the bigger person who says to the mean person, I'm not going to engage you right now because this is not charitable. I'm not going to be acting charitably towards you. You are clearly not acting charitably towards me. And here, there is no possible way for us to move forward in a constructive manner because the anger, the passion of anger, the emotion of anger has completely overridden the conversation. In fact, we might even say in these situations, there's no conversation at all. Now, how about in the workplace? And I think this is something that's worth addressing in its own special little category. One of the most overlooked sins that I think is committed on a fairly regular basis is workplace gossip. People talk about each other, they get catty about each other, they say all kinds of mean things to each other behind each other's backs, right? It's easier to talk about someone than to talk to someone. I mean, that's the old adage. Easier to comment about them than to actually address them personally and directly. So how do we deal with this as a Catholic? Well, for one, if you're going to present yourself as a practicing Catholic, there's a few things that you have to keep in mind. First, is this a conversation worthy of my discipleship? In other words, if the Lord were sitting right next to me, is this a conversation he wants me to have? Two, what is the tone and even the language that I use in the conversation? And three, do I even need to have the conversation with this person, or am I just gossiping? Because there are moments in an office workplace where you actually have to have difficult conversations about a third party, sometimes with your supervisor, because that third party who's mean or aggressive or making life difficult needs to be addressed, but you're not the person who can do it. So you have to go to a supervisor or someone above both of you who can address the situation constructively. That's not gossip. That's actually professional responsibility for the good of the order of the organization. But I'm talking about here is when you're talking to a peer about a third person, neither of you can do anything about it. And by the way, there's no intentionality here amongst the people having the conversation to try to help that person. All you're basically doing is commiserating and throwing mutual bombs back and forth to each other, which are really supposed to be directed to that third person. That is not charitable at all. And that is actually meanness in its own right, which is, of course, the great hypocrisy of all of this. People who complain about mean people and do so in such a way that they're actually being mean themselves. So uncharitable speech in the workplace is very, very common. And I think that if you're going to grow in the life of virtue, especially in moderation of speech, a Catholic has to be very intentional about, one, selecting who you have conversations with, the type of conversations you have, and making a very quick and honest discernment. Is this a conversation that's actually going to lead to the good of the person we're talking about, or to the good of the organization that perhaps this third party is threatening in some way, maybe by their bad behavior or their neglect or whatever the case may be? But it comes up almost every day. So it's something to be very conscientious about and aware of, and intentional in growing, in avoiding the vice of gossip, the sin, and then growing in the virtue of charitable speech, which really contributes to the betterment and good of everyone involved. This is not easy, but by God's grace and a real commitment to a life of virtue, it's certainly very achievable. So I hope that next time you're dealing with a mean person, no matter who they are, whether it's at work or at school, maybe in your own family, that you, one, learn to diffuse situations that are really not going to go anywhere, especially in that moment because there's still too much anger. And then two, being patient and charitable in working with that person to try to arrive at a place where something good can come out of the conversation. And this is something that you struggle with a lot at work, maybe learning to withdraw from those kinds of conversations and just start backing away because you realize that the uncharitable speech that can occur so easily amongst peers in an office place is really not of God. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and others we provide here at St. Patrick's Seminary, please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thanks and God bless.